Today I'll explain how to upgrade your TIVO hard drive. The tools that will be needed are screwdrivers, a desktop PC with 4GB FAT32 hard drive, half a frickin' brain, TIVO, a new larger hard drive, and MFS tool CD. Open your TIVO and place the drive in your PC. If you don't know how to do this, then I suggest you better not try it for yourself. Warning: don't boot into Windows with your TIVO drive. You won't be able to use it on your TIVO anymore. Check the show notes for more details. First off, notice how the BIOS reports your drive information. You need to know where your drives are later on. Let's freeze frame and take a closer look. Notice how primary master is my FAT32 hard drive. Primary slave is the 120GB hard drive. Secondary master is the optical drive, and secondary slave is the original TIVO hard drive. Linux will always report primary master as HDA, primary slave as HDB. Secondary master is HDC, and secondary slave is HDD. Let's boot the MFS tools and begin the process. Before I begin, you need to understand some basic things. We are booting into a small Linux distribution that is designed to manipulate TIVO drives. You can add, remove, upgrade, downgrade, and copy things to and from your drives. If you have a hard time detecting your drives, try the No DMA option when you boot. This might help. I don't need this option, so I just hit enter. As MFS tool loads, it will show a lot more information about the system. Once MFS tools is done, you will be at a command prompt. If you need to review the status screen, you can always use Shift Page Up to look it over. Let's scroll up and verify where our drives are on the system. Here, notice how primary drive is my FAT32 drive. At HDA, primary slave is the new 120GB at HDB. Secondary master is the optical drive at HDC, and secondary slave is the original TIVO hard drive at HDD. And now, you can scroll back to the boot prompt by using Shift Page Down. Let's start with some basic navigation commands because you need to know how to get around your system. At any time, you could type pwd to print working directory and find out where exactly in the system you are. This shows us that we are in the lowest level of system called root. If you want to see the files and directories, you can type ls to get a list. We need to go forward and backwards into and out of directories. Simply type cd and then the directory name to move into the directory. Now let's go into the mnt, otherwise known as the mount directory, by typing cd mnt. Now let's get a list by typing ls. Here we can see the directories C, D, E, and TIVO. Now that you know how to move around, let's start manipulating the system. We will need to mount the FAT32 drive. Mounting a drive means making it accessible for read-or-write functions. This isn't DOS or Windows, so things work differently here. We need to manually mount the drive. The first thing we need to do is make something called a mount point. A mount point is the directory from which the drive is accessed. We need to mount the FAT32 drive to a directory, so using the directory command, let's make a DOS directory. Simply type mkdir DOS. Let's make sure it's there. Type ls for the updated list. And here we see the DOS directory has now been created. Now let's mount our FAT32 DOS-based drive to the DOS directory by typing mount dev/hda partition 1. If you have multiple partitions on the drive, it will be HDA2, HDA3, HDA4, and so on. And we're going to mount this to mnt/DOS. Now that we have our FAT32 drive up and going, let's make sure it's accessible. Now type in cd DOS. Now do a list. Here are the contents of our drive. Yay! It worked! We have a file in here that we want to delete. To do this, we use the rm or remove command. So let's remove tivo.mfs. If you want to delete a directory, you can use the same command but just use the directory name. Let's verify that it's gone by doing another list. And now it's deleted. To go back a directory, we use the cd space ... command. And here we are back at the root of our drive. If you want to skip right to the mount/DOS directory, you can simply type cd/mnt/DOS. These are the basic navigation and manipulation commands that you will need to know. We can use an application called MFS-TIVO to get information about our TIVO drive. Remember, the original TIVO drive is dev/HDD. Here we have the information about the drive. Notice how it tells us that this is a standalone TIVO with an estimated record time of 39 hours. The first thing that I would suggest you do is back up your original TIVO OS from your TIVO drive using MFS Backup. This is a list of the available options you can use. We obviously want the -O option to output a file. We can use the -1 to -9 to compress the image, which we won't do today for time's sake. We want to shrink the MFS backup with the -S option. You might need the -L command to back up some of the TIVO streams. In my case, this is needed. Make sure you point the MFS backup to the correct drives and paths. So let's MFS backup -L to save streams that are no larger than 9999 megabytes to /mount/dos/filename is tivo.mfs and backup to /device/hdd. Here's what it looks like. Depending on how you have the drives hooked up on your system will determine whether or not you will back up HDD, HDC, or whatever. This might take a little while, so sit back and be patient while the process just runs its course. When you restore your backup, if there is no background pictures or animations, you will need to use the -L option to back up streams. Newer TIVO software uses streams as backgrounds. If you don't back up the streams of, say, 9999 megabytes, then they will be left out of your backup and cannot be restored. Your TIVO will not operate correctly without them. So keep this in mind and don't fill it with your original TIVO drive until you have successfully restored the image of the new hard drive. Now that the drive is backed up, I would suggest you take the DOS drive out and back up this file. If you lose it and you mess up your TIVO drive, there is no way of restoring it. With that, let's restore and expand the MFS backup to the larger drive, in this case, a 120 gig hard drive. Start by typing MFS restore. Here are our options. We want the -X option to expand the backup to the entire drive. We want the -P to optimize the partition layout, and we want the -I to input the backup file. Let's tell MFS Tools to restore the new 120 gig hard drive, which is HDB from the TIVO image in /mount/dos. Now type in MFS restore -XPI. Path to the main backup file is /mnt/dos/tivo.mfs, which will copy and expand to /dev/hdb. This might take a little while, so sit back and relax. Once it is done, it will tell you how much space you had before and after you upgraded. If you are using a drive larger than 138 gigs, you might need to make sure that the TIVO OS supports large drives. This is called LBA48 support. If your TIVO OS doesn't have LBA48 support, you will be limited to a 138 gig per drive. Also, this version of MFS Tools does not have LBA48 support. The PDTV tool CD is built from MFS Tools. It looks a little different when it boots, but the process of backing up and restoring is the same. I know that the 7.2 version of the TIVO OS does in fact have LBA48 support, but I don't know about the previous versions. You can find out which is your version in the TIVO settings. DirecTV TiVos will need a custom hack to enable LBA48 support, so we will leave that for another day. Most PCs today have LBA48 support. Pretty much anything above a Pentium 2 class from 1999 will do just fine. The restore process is done, and now we have an estimated recording time of 126 hours. We went from 39 hours to 126. Now shut down using Ctrl-Alt-Delete. From here, it's a matter of plugging in your new drive and making sure it works. For more information, see the show notes. There is a full how-to guide on using MFS Tools on the net that I will link you to, as well as where to get the PDTV LBA ISO and MFS Tools ISO. Any questions? Hop right on IRC or the forums and we'll help you out.
Hi, my name is